Well, we've changed locations. We're now in Kauai village, actually more specifically Hakauish. But yeah, it's a really beautiful place. In fact, through the trees over there is one of the schools that I work at, Kauai Junior High School. So if you're an ALT that ends up positioned here, you're very lucky. So Bear, I think we sort of covered the, your experience of sort of actually coming to Japan initially from the Philippines, the sort of recruitment process.
Yeah.
How did you find living in rural, because like rural Japan is very different to the image that you often see of Japan, isn't it?
Yes.
How did you find that experience of coming to Japan? Whereabouts were you positioned, that kind of stuff?
I wouldn't exactly say that I was disappointed. In fact, I was pleased.
Okay, yeah.
Because things like my living conditions have actually improved. Believe it or not. The pay was satisfactory. Like it's not like I'm gonna be rich, but it's enough so that I can live. Right?
Yeah.
And
so this was a pay increase over what you had earned in the Philippines as a teacher before coming to Japan.
I think so, yes. And there are just some like little things that I find more convenient now that I live here.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that you might take for granted because like you're used to it maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that I want you, if you want to go into, because so much discourse on YouTube, from what I'm aware, now I might be wrong, but is from a perspective of maybe ALTs like myself coming from the UK who have had a certain level of living or whatever. I can't think of a better way of putting it. Now, I didn't have a tumble dryer, but you talked about how you used to wash clothes and stuff like that. You know, is it that kind of thing that you mean?
Yes, because the washers here are, I know in the UK they're probably better than the washers here, but the washers here are better than the washers that I had back home.
Yeah.
And washing clothes is like a different experience over there because you just use the washer for that part of your laundry where you have to use the soap.
I see, yeah.
The rinsing part you have to do by yourself.
Yeah, this is what I remember you saying, that you sort of, was it like beating the clothes or something like that? Or
you have to wring them dry.
Yeah.
And you have to rinse them like maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
Not even twice or 3 times.
Yes, yeah.
So you have to do, like, it's like a big event that happens every Saturday.
You've got to make time for it.
You have to make time for it.
Yeah.
But here it's like, I'm just gonna press some buttons.
Yeah.
And then I can relax.
Yeah.
And then I can hang them afterwards.
That's
and
it,
then I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is so convenient.
This is it, yeah. I remember having this conversation with you whenever it was, and I found it so fascinating because I was probably moaning about how terrible my washing machine is.
And I remembered getting in my apartment and feeling like this is the biggest apartment I've ever been in.
Ah, interesting,
like, because remember, back home I lived in a boarding space.
Okay.
And
on the school campus kind of idea.
Yeah, there was a time that I lived in the campus and there was a time when I lived nearby.
Okay. Yeah.
So the rooms are basically just it's different for like different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And for the richer kids, of course, they had bigger apartments.
Same the world over.
But in my case, it was more of like it's just like this box.
Yeah.
And I like the bedrooms here, the kitchen's over here.
Yeah.
Bathrooms over here. And that's it.
Sounds like my bed sitting bright. I'm not joking.
No, it's like a box like this. And then I went to my apartment in Tono and it's like, wow, like the toilet and the bath is
all separate rooms.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I joke about this bed sitting bright, and are you aware of what I mean by a bed sit at all? Is that
No, I don't know what that is.
I don't know if it's a British English thing or what, but a bed sit is essentially just one room that you rent in the UK, and it's literally might have a little bit of a kitchen area in it, which doubles up as your sink to wash your face and whatever kind of thing in. You've got your bed in there, you might have a little desk or something that's sat, and that's it really. You might have a shared shower. Oh wow, look at that. Do you want to take a picture?
Yeah, but I don't want to go here.
Yeah, it's pretty deep, isn't it? You might want to come back here perhaps. Yeah. Once again, a message from the Japan or Iwate Tourism Board. Don't move to Tokyo. Come here.
Maybe if I put it like this.
Yeah.
No, there's still a big pile of snow.
Yeah, who put that there?
It's fine.
It's
My
amazing.
eyes can see it.
Yeah, it's stunning, isn't it?
Are you ready,
I
Mr.
think-
Camera?
I think Mr. Camera is ready. And just going, calling everything Mr. something, like Roland, the van's name, was
Yes.
going to be Mr. Mouse
Very,
for a brief while.
very, how can I say it? Very formal.
Very formal, yeah, this is it.
Mr. Roland.
Mr. Roland, your tea is ready. Beans
And then
on
it's
toast.
just your car.
It's just like, yeah, have you met Roland? Oh, he sounds, where did he go? Oxford? Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as I know, he was manufactured in Japan. Anyway, so, yeah, so those conveniences are really interesting, you know, things that, you know,
Yeah.
but what other conveniences have you
Yes.
found? So,
I think I discovered that the way I lived back home
yeah,
is different from the way other ALTs lived,
yes.
because somebody told me the moment they entered their apartment,
Uh-huh.
they had an anxiety attack because it was so small.
Really?
They're like, oh my god, I'm stuck here, I'll be here for a year, and blah blah blah. blah.
Where
And
were
then
they living
had-
before? Somewhere in Highland Park in Chicago or something,
No.
you know?
Like they lived in America.
Oh,
and
okay, well,
I think
everything is
because-
about 28 feet wide there, so
Yeah, so they're like, oh my god, I'll be stuck in this box for a year, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
what am I going
What?
to do?
I'm like, what?
Live?
Which is weird because my
Yeah.
reaction was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
When I saw the space, I'm like, oh my god, this
Yeah.
is so bougie. Like, I mean,
Oh, I've really moved up in the world, yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's really interesting.
And also, I loved that I didn't have to boil water every time I had to shower.
Every
It's
time
like-
you had to shower, you used, oh, yeah.
So, because back home we had, it's not even like, how can I say, because people will think that, oh my gosh, oh, you have to boil water. No, it's a choice. Like, it's just something that we do.
Yeah.
We boil the water every morning.
Okay.
We put it in a bucket,
Uh-huh.
and then we put more water just so that it's not scalding hot.
Well, of course, you don't want that when you're sitting, so, yeah.
And then we have this little, maybe ladle,
Mm-hmm.
and then we,
Scoop it over you.
yeah,
Yeah.
we scoop it. That's how we take our showers. That's how
Okay.
we wash ourselves.
Uh-huh.
And here it's like, you just
Turn
do
the
that.
tap. And there
and
it
that's
is.
it.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So-
It warms up. There it is.
So I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. This is
What an
convenient.
improvement.
Yeah. See, that's more time saved, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that sort of
Yeah,
really stood out in terms of improvement in living conditions, if I can use
think-
that phrase?
I think that's pretty much it. I'm not saying that everybody lives this way back home.
No.
Okay, because some people, they have showers and stuff.
Well,
but-
it's like if you go anywhere. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, when I grew up, we moved away from the southeast
Mm-hmm.
of England, and we moved to this. I think I don't think my parents would be offended if I said this, but there's a fairly decrepit.
It's like this haunted house.
I'm sure the bathroom actually was. I was scared of it, so it was like we there used to be this style of bath. You may have seen them in pictures. I mean, maybe you have them in the Philippines, but like these cast iron baths, and they have like these claw feet. Spooky as hell, and the toilet, like the cistern,
Yeah.
was like high up on the wall with a long pipe.
I've seen things like that. Those are like really old types.
Yeah,
Right?
super old, and it's just like this creepy place.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is that in this house there was virtually no heating. There's no central heating, and we had one coal fire in the front room to heat this entire house, which obviously was pretty cold to say the least in the winter.
So it's like a fireplace of some sort?
Yeah, literally, you'd have to sort of chop the wood bit of newspaper to get the fire
This is
started.
1800s, Vicky, what's happening?
Yeah, I used to wear a cloth cap and have soot on my face. This is what I mean, you know, like, you know, there are different levels of the way people live. I mean, like the electricity situation, obviously most people flick on the switch, as long as you've been paying the bills, the electricity works, kind of thing. Where we moved into, it was like a meter. And I don't mean like one of these modern day meters that some people in the UK are thinking of, like a key card that you go down the convenience store and put 10 quid on or something like that, which will last you about 2 seconds these days. I mean like an actual meter you put physical money into. Like 50p coins.
Yeah.
So the electric would click off sometimes. You'd have to go upstairs,
Oh my god.
put the 50p coin into the meter, which was in my bedroom.
It's like prepaid.
Yeah, prepaid. And then I don't know how often, maybe every couple of weeks or so, the electricity board guy would come round to empty the meter. And that's how the bill was paid for the electric. Yeah, it wasn't sort of wired up, ready to go kind of thing. I mean, actually this put me in good stead, because that crappy bedsit I lived in Brighton, I think enough years have gone by now for me to not be incriminated, but it used to take the old 50p coins. Now anybody in the UK will know that in the late 90s they made the 50p coins smaller, and then the old big coins went out of circulation. But this meter that was in this bedsit had presumably been repurposed, and the idea was that it still used old 50p coins. And you had to go downstairs to the guy who looked after the places to change your like current day currency into these
so
old.
So you give him the money and he'll give you like these coins.
That's it, that you could put in the meter for your electric. Because obviously I worked out how to jimmy the lock. So I used to make an effort every now and then just to sort of, you know, oh hi Bob, that was his name actually, give you all the details. Hi Bob, here's 2 quid kind of thing for some electric. So you'd show a bit of willing, but you would obviously every now and then open up the meter, get the coins back out and put them back into it. Anyway, another story. Probably cut that out.
But yeah, I do realize that there are some things that people maybe take for granted.
There are. No, you are right.
Because
Jokes
it's like
aside.
it's like a normal thing in their life.
It's an expected thing.
Yeah.
I think more to the point would be the way I would say it.
But as someone who didn't get used to these things, I think I appreciate them more.
Yeah, I think that's really. I don't want this to sound pathetic or a bit like, oh bear, but you know, for me to hear these kinds of things, not just today but obviously in the past, because we have talked about this, but makes me appreciate them more, you know. And I'm not just saying that to, you know, everybody on YouTube to go, oh Vicky, you're so nice. I don't mean that, you know. I just honestly do think that, because it's opened my eyes up to things that perhaps, even though I found some struggles adapting to life in rural Japan to start with, which I might touch upon in a minute, you know, I've come to think, well look, you had so much, you know, don't overlook it, you know, kind of thing. Yeah, you've only got one hot plate to cook dinner with, but you've got a hot plate to cook dinner with, kind of thing, isn't it? You know, you don't have to go to great gargantuan efforts to prepare these things. So, and there are other options, you know, like if cooking dinner is such an ordeal that night, there are ramen shops, you know, like that kind of thing. So that's really interesting about the convenience side of things. In terms of adapting to life in rural Japan, how was that from an emotional side, a Japanese language side? What's your thoughts on that?
I think I underestimated how much English is not used here. Because I thought maybe they know some basic phrases, because it's like English is spoken all over the world.
Yeah, you usually find somebody, don't you? So,
and the moment I got here, I realized some people never spoke it.
Nope.
Didn't have the motivation to learn, which is understandable, because like they'll never use it.
There's no need for it up here.
And it gave me that sort of fear and anxiety that I've never felt before.
Right, I see.
Within I think in the first month, I was even too scared to go to the supermarket, to go out, to just buy the things that I need. It's like a whole ordeal.
I get it.
Just going out.
Yeah.
Because I was so scared that people would talk to me and ask questions and maybe like what, like I'm also not used to the money.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, oh my god, I'm fumbling with my wallet. I don't know how to pay this lady.
Yeah. Is just very quickly on a note, just as a side, is the Philippines a very cash-based society like Japan, or is it? Okay.
It's a cash-based society, unlike other countries. I think you use credit cards and stuff.
Yeah, cards are much more prevalently used in the UK these days.
But back home, I'm just so used to the money back home that you can tell just by touching sometimes, like, oh, okay,
yeah, this
like
is
these
such and
coins.
such.
Yeah. But here, it's like, oh, these are completely different.
Yeah.
Like I had to look at the numbers, like I had to decipher what it's trying to say. Like for the bills, it's easier, but the coins are kind of hard. Because you're in that moment, you have to know the amount, like of the coins just by touching it, and you can't.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the 5 yen coin doesn't literally have like the numeral, the Roman numeral 5 on it. I think it's the kanji for 5. Which, you know.
And it looks quite similar to the 50 yen.
Yeah, it's got a hole
coin.
in it, isn't it? Yeah.
But, you know, like, just like other things, we eventually got used to them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I totally get the money thing. I mean, I remember when I first got here, my first week, I was in Nerima in Tokyo. You know, I'd sort of tacked on a week's vacation, if you can call it that, before going up to Sendai for training with Interac. And I remember sitting there one of these mornings, probably still jet lagged, looking at this money, thinking, oh my god, you know, and I'm trying to figure out what's what and all the rest of it, because it was a nightmare. So yeah, it did take a bit of getting used to. Yeah, so that money,
nice.
It was beautiful, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, sorry, we just had to pause there because Baya's not actually really, you've not walked fully along this bit, have you?
No, this is the first time and it's really pretty.
Yeah, so like, obviously before I broke my wrist, this is actually one of my running routes after school, and I've probably talked about it in other videos with just myself nattering about stuff. If I haven't, I will do. But, you know, for me, one of the things that really helped me get a bit of a foothold, no pun intended, in Japan was, you know, being able to do things like running in places like this. It gave me I don't know, there was something about it that made me feel a little bit more connected with where I was actually living and working. But how was the actual day-to-day of going to work as an ALT, coming back to your apartment? How was that as a person living there by yourself, perhaps the only English speaking person for miles around kind of idea?
I think at first I felt like I can never live here long term.
I see, yeah.
Because just going through your day and not talking to anybody aside from your teachers, and all you talk about is work. Yeah. It's like you don't have, how can I say this? You can't connect with somebody on a deeper level. Yeah. And it was hard. Yeah. It was hard for me. Like, I felt so isolated because at that point in time, there weren't other ALTs around Dono, where I was. Yeah. And there were only like the locals, which, don't get me wrong, they're very, very nice. Yes. Very nice people. I can't complain. And there are some old ladies who would talk to me, and it was nice. Yeah. But like sometimes you need somebody you can totally be honest with. Yes. Because like I don't know if this is like an innate thing or maybe this is just a me thing. I want to please people, so you adjust with every person you meet.
The people pleaser.
Yeah. And I can kind of tell that because we are not like the same age, like these older people that I talk to are not the same age, we don't have the same experiences. Yeah, exactly. Like, I had to adjust in a certain way, and that is fine, that is totally okay.
I think that would happen anywhere. I think if you was suddenly airdropped into a different location in the Philippines and there was predominantly people of over the age of 70 there.
Yeah.
Even though you might be speaking the same language, there are going to be limits to your social interactions.
Yes. And it's just, sometimes I go home and I just get so tired because I feel like the whole day has been a performance.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
And I just want to rest and not pretend anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
It's almost like, you know, what's my sense of self?
Yes.
You know, you almost sort of like can't you say the words myself? Maybe I should have done that English test. Playing this kind of role, I'm going to walk in the road a little bit more. You know, like where you're trying to present this perfect sort of image.
Yeah.
And that acts as a big restraint on our interactions with people regardless of language, I think. So,
and also there's this thing about, oh, you represent the place where you're from.
Yeah.
So if you're crappy to anybody, they would think, oh, so this is how Filipinos are. And I don't want that kind of,
no,
I don't want them to think of me that way and therefore think about my country that way.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah, I have the same thing. I mean, like, if I was to use my sense of humour here, I mean, sarcasm doesn't really work in Japan, but if I was to use my sense of humour here, then I just think, well, they're all a bunch of loonies from where I am. You know, I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word anymore, but you know what I mean. And, you know, it's... you kind of almost become this best version of yourself because you don't want people to, as you say, think ill of where you're from. Like, oh, all people from the UK are rude or whatever it might be, or impatient and all these kinds of things, or have no consideration for other people.
Yes.
Are some of the things people have said about me. No, but seriously, it does make... I sort of put out this video recently where it felt almost like, by putting this image out there, it felt like I had become this kind of... I'm not saying I had become this blemish-free thing, but this thing almost without imperfections, this false, benign, not really quite there. It's almost as if you become invisible. You feel like you've become invisible because you're not being true.
Because this person that you're projecting to the world, it's not really you, right? It's not like who you are with friends or with like people who know you. It's different.
Yeah, this is it.
You allow yourself a bit more leeway to say some ridiculous thing.
Yeah, we all hopefully, I think if you're truly friends with people, we always give people, you know, a lot more leeway as friends because we hopefully know them a lot better than, you know, for example, I used that word loony. Some people might take offence at these days. I don't know, I'd have to check that. But I think you know that I'm not somebody who, I mean, as I work with children who have various emotional and mental capacity issues and so forth, I think most people would know that I'm not somebody who has negative, don't know how to say it, but you know, approaches to people's mental health. But anyway, that's a digression. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And do you feel that by presenting this image that we sometimes do a bit of a disservice to ourselves, and maybe also within the workplace a little bit? I mean, when I say workplace, I mean like to the kids, seeing what natural interaction in this language is like? I think,
in a way, I realized later on that this is something I've imposed on myself.
Yeah.
Like, people don't actually expect me to be perfect.
No.
Because in the end, Japanese people are people too.
Yeah, I mean, I see things all the time.
Like.
Yeah.
They know that, oh, you know, sometimes people do some things and like, it's fine because we do those things too, because we're people too.
We're people, you know, it's not saying that you make some huge blunder or something, but we all have our moments where we don't look properly behind us and the door slams in somebody's face almost. You're like, oh shit, you know, kind of thing. But, you know, it doesn't mean that the entirety of our country are irresponsible, you know, selfish individuals, does it? So
yes. And I feel like later on I realized, maybe too late when I was in Tono, that my co-teachers and everything, they were willing to see me beyond who I was as an ALT.
Yeah,
They were willing to be friends with me. It was me.
Mm-mm.
It was me. Like,
Not you as an ALT, but you as Bea.
Yeah, I was not able to open up because I was scared that people would think this, people would think that. When in reality, people don't really think about things like that. They were just talking to you as a person.
Yeah, this is it. You've got to kind of almost sort of think about, well, how do I treat these people that I work with? Do I expect them to be this perfect individual? You know, no.
Yeah.
You know, we're all flawed, we're all human. So, but it doesn't, you know, that's not necessarily always a bad thing. Sometimes it's those flaws that actually make things more interesting in life, you know. So
yeah, and also maybe one thing that made me also feel isolated at that point in time was because I was new at my job.
Yeah.
I was pretty bad at it.
Who isn't when they first start doing this job?
I was so bad, and if that's the only life you have in a foreign country, or you don't have friends, and you're not good at it.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of feeling would that be? You can only imagine, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the only life that I have here, and I'm not even good at it.
This is it, and
right?
you know, for all the washer dryers in the world, you ain't gonna start thinking, but hey, my clothes washing is really easy now. It's
yeah. I think it's a process. It's something that everybody goes through.
Yeah.
You suck at something first before you get better.
Yeah.
And we have to go through this kind of how can I say? Like you have to be bad in order to be good.
Yeah. Well, we you know, that goes with everything in life. And you know, I experienced exactly the same thing. You know, I was hopeless at this job when I first started. You know, I'd come off the back of doing 10 years as a wedding photographer, working with people of all ages. You know, had to be very much up there, out front, sorting things out from time to time. And I came here and I felt like I could barely speak. I mean, I literally couldn't speak any Japanese really for what it's worth, but I was hopeless, you know.
Yeah, it feels like the most basic things that you take for granted. Like going to the store, having small talk, making friends. They suddenly become this big undertaking.
Yeah, it's quite an ordeal, some of this stuff, isn't it? So, you know, the thought of having to sort out anything that was administrative with the city hall, even little tiny things that I mentioned a few times is like buying a stamp. You know, you're kind of rehearsing how to say things before you go to the post office. It's, you know, you sort of don't think about these things sometimes. You think, yeah, I'm moving to Japan to go and teach, I'm going to do this, I'm going to eat takoyaki, I'm going to go to Family Mart, I'm going to go and see the, you know, Tokyo TV Tower, all this kind of stuff, but you overlook.
I'll take a video.
Yeah, isn't this beautiful? So yeah, this is Route 106 that runs between Morioka and Miyako, and this is the Hei River just down there. So yeah.